Hey folks, how are you guys doing? Good afternoon, rock and roll. So with this, in this session, we're going to talk about AI and operations. Let me get the screen back to normal. How did it? All right. A lot of people have been talking about AI. Now we need to figure out what's real, what's not real, and especially with AI and live streaming, it's something that's been near and dear to a lot of our hearts. We wanted you guys to learn from this, is like to hear from some of the experts in the industry about what they've been doing with it. They're all experts in live streaming, so I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk about what they've done in the industry and how they've been utilizing AI inside the workflow and where they really are. So let's start off, Doug.
So my experience in live streaming is I for about 7 years, I worked for the team that produced live streams for Salesforce and Google when Google Hangouts were launching. So we traveled the world, did all those live streams in the early days. And today I'm more focused on smaller teams and leveraging AI to help people do better, more evergreen content through streaming.
And Doug Daulton, folks. Sayyad, introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Sayyad Mohammed, and I come from Evertz Microsystems. We're a vendor in the broadcast industry space. My role at Evertz is I lead business development for our media transport and compression workflow products. So with the implementation of AI, we're really looking into optimizing workflows from an end-to-end perspective to, especially from a vendor perspective, to kind of give an optimal workflow to our clients.
Corey Smith. I'm currently at TATA Comms Media. TATA Comms Media is a combination of TATA Communications, rest of the world, and The Switch here in North America. So as acquisition occurred a couple of years ago, The Switch is now part of the larger Comms Media from a global perspective. My role there is basically service delivery. So I take all of the engineering requirements, business use case information from the customer. I assemble all of the parts, build a platform or a solution. It could be captions, it could be asset management, it could be live streaming, it could be live single acquisition, whatever it happens to be. I build it for the customer and get it deployed and operationalize it. Previously, I was at Activision Blizzard, or actually before that, I was at CBS Sports, where I was pioneering cloud-based television platform solutions. Galaza Network is one of the products I did launch over there. Speaking of the AI panel earlier today about dubbing and localization, if you play back the Galaza Network, that's 100% AI captions generated network. And it's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate for sure, but that's a combination of AI media as Lexi, and it all runs 100% in AWS.
Very cool.
Before that, I was at Activision Blizzard. I pioneered the esports technology platforms for Overwatch League and Call of Duty League when esports was actually a business, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Hi, I am JP, come from Uruguay, from Montevideo, Uruguay. I'm CEO and co-founder of Qualabs. We're a software engineering outsourcing firm for media. We work with major media companies in the US and Europe, and also media technology companies. And I'm also the host of the Montevideo Tech community. So we've shared with many people here some conversations and nice chats. We do that every other month, so feel free to join.
Magnus.
Hey, Magnus Svensson. I'm from Eyevinn Technology in Sweden. We're a Swedish-based consultancy company focusing on helping the media industry with expertise in, I would say, production to distribution of video. We are 26 employees and a couple of AI bots working for us. And we are helping media companies across, similar to JP, we're helping media companies in Europe and North America to implement video workflows.
This is a multi-continental panel here. And now, before we get into the questions, I just want to kind of get a gauge from you guys as well too. Already using AI, huge proponent, still skeptical, or it hasn't proven itself yet? Where are you on that spectrum right now?
I'm in a model probably 7 hours a day doing stuff, pretty much.
So gung-ho.
Yeah, we're currently using AI in different spaces, and because we are end to end in the broadcast industry, we started at a certain point within our industry utilizing AI, and what we're trying to do now is kind of put that AI technology within all the rest of the broadcast industry.
AI currently is a lot of captioning workflow right now. So trying to apply good use cases for AI and not just deploying it because we can deploy it. We're actually trying to find genuine use cases that actually improve business operations, improves our ability to run our business day to day. And so, yeah.
Cool. So we have two very different AI use cases. One is for accelerating our software engineering process. That's definitely a thing nowadays on a day-to-day, but also depending on our clients' legal requirements. And I would say in practice, in the media workflows, there's a lot of conversations about it. We work with most of the major streaming companies. I wouldn't say it's like there's a lot of conversations. There's not many real use cases in production nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say maybe with the exception for creating videos or adapting videos itself, we work a lot with AI, especially in the automation, configuration, workflows, and these type of things. We also have, as JP mentioned, we have some friends working for us. We have one AI bot called Oscar. He's helping us with doing pull requests and encoding and checking in things and doing code reviews and for us. So we will probably adapt more Oscars into our workflows as well. So we are doing everything from coding assistance, but I would say mainly is configuration, automation, workflow auto optimizations using AI, and that is not going from experimenting to actually deploying it in live production sites at customers.
Let's. I want to dig into that. How was that journey to getting that bot out there? Was it something that was easy to do, hard to do? Were there a lot of failures in the middle? Tell us about the genesis of that.
Honestly, it was damn simple to get Oscar into the workflow. We have already MCP servers created for a lot of our services, so that's what this started it. And then we realized, why don't we do a Slack integration with Oscar and the bot we did and the AI data we did. So we named him Oscar, and he is now part of our Slack, so we can call him, we can ask him. He actually is a bit chatty, so we have to keep him in separate channels because he is very chatty and he loves to inform what he's doing.
I want to get into, it's like we're trying to look at live streaming operations and the analytics as well too. Have you guys started, who started looking at it for like anomaly detection or metadata detection or things like that? Does anyone have?
Yeah, at Evertz, we've looked into it for a couple of years actually. So a part of our product catalog has been live replay and highlight reels and things like that with one of our products called the Dreamcatcher. So what that has done basically is utilized AI to basically automatically create highlight reels and things like that based on metadata fed to it, and that kind of is the start of where we're trying to expand our AI workflow using that groundwork of what we've done in the live production space.
And was that something that you trained it to do? How does it know what metadata is important?
Right. So again, like AI is only as good as the data that you feed it, right? So metadata was a huge factor in terms of what the capability of this this product suite is. I'll use an example. You can have, because we have EVs today, a gas-powered Rolls-Royce, but without any gas, what good is it, right? So I think metadata was super important. The way we did that, we used deep learning machine models like YOLO and stuff to be able to train that product to be able to detect XY coordinates and object detection and things like that.
Cool. Doug, you said you do a lot with small businesses as well too.
Well, what I'm working on are things like early stage social media curation. So if you have a live event, then you can be polling the Twitter feeds, the Blue Sky feeds, and so on. That so if people are asking questions or talking about it, you have the potential to bring that into the live chat. The tools like that, like how can you build out a more interactive experience by having AI monitoring some sources and then surfacing, aggregating it, bringing it together, and saying, okay, well, this is something you might want to ask the panel about. Things like that.
Have you seen a use for AI to be used to help gauge the health of the stream or the health of the workflow?
Not, I've seen those. I haven't. It's not something I've worked directly with, and it makes perfect sense. But, particularly when we were in the early stages, having to go out through a bunch of servers we didn't own, being able to monitor that and have some feedback, have an agent come back and say, "Hey, server X is giving us problems," and help us to either figure that out in the early stages before we go live, and reroute. That would have been useful.
Corey, are you guys using AI to help with predictability or reliability? And
We're not, but I've been looking at a couple different things for the use of AI in terms of making intelligent traffic decisions of how video flows across the network from a global perspective. If we start seeing hotspots in particular regions, being able to route gracefully around those without having on-air impact. Some of the other pieces, orchestration-wise, is standing up some of our media cloud components. So if we see we need more XYZ of these type of services running in the network, whether it's caption encoders, whether it's FFmpeg, streams for our media supply chain infrastructure, it organically can go in and make sure that the scale out is done effectively. Most recently, like even actually on Sunday, I was actually doing a bunch of capture tests with one of our products, SailGP. If you're familiar with SailGP, it's this boat race, but it's an international type of an event. So we typically would have a French and German and Italian caster as part of the localization piece of that. And so I've been actually playing around with what does localization sound like from a speech recognition standpoint. And so it was actually funny, I had a little chuckle earlier, the panel about the dubbing piece again, because the voice is tracking back and forth from a slow down and speed up perspective as the captions are being generated. So how do we figure that out in terms of, how obviously the voice translation needs to be fluid, like it's a normal person talking. And if it's going super fast and then it slows down because of the way that the captions are being generated, a localization experience of, like, if I'm an Italian, viewer or a German viewer, I'm going to say it's rubbish and turn it off. And so that's going to detract from the audience. It's going to detract from the brand itself. And so we have to be very careful of how much technology we provide, like AI, transposing of speech, to make sure we're actually doing it, in an authentic way, and we're not, basically blowing the audience up.
anything other with predictability or operations?
On the operations side, we're working on, we did all these CFCD V2 implementations for IVC, and started getting a lot of real data from some of the operators that actually put CMCD V2 in production in Europe. And we're now doing like a kind of war room analysis on, it's more like to make faster decisioning or faster root cause analysis. So that's the kind of the solutions we're building now with it. But again, I don't see that yet deployed in production. I see a lot of like interest and POCs and actually seeing if whatever that's doing, it's getting back good data. But also people are doing live operations. They already have a lot in their front books, a lot in their processes. So I think we should be able to train it to get up to speed.
So is that the limiting factor right now? Is that all the data is there, but how do you actually train it to understand how it can make a decision and alleviate some of that thought process from a human being?
Definitely, because in the end, QoE data is affecting multi-CDN decisioning or sending traffic through another ISP or whatever.
Yeah. Magnus, I know you've been using Oscar for a bunch of this stuff. Do you have like KPIs or internally, or how do you measure Oscar's benefit to you?
We haven't defined any KPIs yet, but we can definitely see the benefits. So one example is that a couple of months ago only we quoted a task of work to be a couple of sprints, 2-week sprints of work, and Oscar helped us do that in a couple of hours. So it's tremendous. You still need to check it. You still need to understand what you're doing with and what you're asking Oscar to do, and you still need to do the code reviews and approve the PRs, but that you have to do with any developer. So Oscar is actually getting better for every day. So, but coming back to the observation and live events, I worked with it's not a client, but it's a partner we're working with. They actually implemented a very interesting part where they take snapshot of the video itself, the live video itself, and check that it's actually accurate. They're doing a lot of junior league, small league, soccer, table tennis, or sports events, and it's usually the same person doing the filming. They're the filming as being the commentator and all these things, so it's hard to have eye on screen. So they take a snapshot, a frame every now and then, and check that for accuracy. Is it a soccer game, or no, it's a chair, so maybe someone kicked the camera. It's fairly easy to do these things now, where you actually take a snapshot of a frame every minute or something, look at it. Is it a soccer game? No, it's a chair, or it's pointing at the sun, or maybe we should do something, and then they can alert the commentator or the crew on site.
And then, so beyond reliability, like AI has been promising to save money and cost as well too. Have you guys seen any examples of AI usage to try to save costs at all?
Well,
You can say no too, and just talk about that.
Magnus and I were talking earlier about Claude Code, which I'm assuming you use to build Oscar. And I have exactly the same experience, right? It's a force multiplier for me. I can dive in, think of a concept, walk through it. And I think there's this perception that AI is going to be completely autonomous, and we might get there one day, right? But you still have to have the human in the middle, and you can't successfully drive Claude to do the things you needed to do unless you understand the logical progression of designing code and how to build those things out. And so I actually work with Claude Code in sprints. I build out sprint documents. I feed them into them, then I go back and check. And, I've been able to put things together exceptionally fast.
So you are saving a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's also
and money, because otherwise I would have to hire out a developer to do that specific thing.
Yeah,
So as a small organization, small startup, it's incredibly valuable.
very cool. So that's a good benefit of Claude. Then I was actually going to ask that later on. Like, do you guys use open source stuff or private stuff? But tell me about because I know Evertz, you're doing a bunch of stuff as well too for cost savings.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you can look at it from two folds, right? AI is obviously an upfront investment. So you can use that to say, well, I'm investing money in AI. But then when you look at it, what AI can do for you as you scale, right? So for instance, let's look at the Super Bowl this year. Sony used over 240 cameras at the Super Bowl, right? Now, think of this from a large scale perspective, where you can have something like object detection at the edge, where you have AI at the edge being able to send something like a low-res proxy in parallel with the compressed feed that it would typically send, right? What that does, it reduces the workload, and then you have load balancing in your entire workflow. So I think there is cost savings to it. There may be an initial upfront investment, but definitely when you scale and you look at the big picture, there's definitely a cost savings analysis to it.
And if you talk to Magnus, Oscar can take a look and make sure it's not pointing at a chair.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's the big, the journey I see in AI right now is you see all these companies building multi-billion-dollar data centers because of the power and the compute needed to run all this stuff. So as a small, business, or even, something like TATA Communications, right? It's really about picking the right opportunities for business optimization, cost reduction in a way that makes sense and applying it to the right things. I think that there's a lot of emphasis about AI is going to change the future. It's like, okay, well, when? I don't understand why this workflow in particular needs to be replaced by AI because why? I mean, you look at the broadcast industry, we're still on satellites from 80 years ago, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, when we get to the future, what does that model look like? Is it a race to build out our own private data centers in the same way Meta and Google and everybody else is building? I don't think it's sustainable.
And if you don't mind, I want to ask you to do your quote from your friend that you talked about, because you're presenting a different problem than like what everyone else has been talking about, or like point solutions. Maybe Evertz a little bit bigger than that, but you're right. They're not talking about data center wide implementations of AI.
Well, again, I think that during our pre-prep meetings, it was like, how do you eat an elephant, right? Do you gobble the whole thing down at once, or do you take it off in small chunks and accelerate your learning as you get through the course of the meal, if you will? And I think that's where we all need to kind of take a step back and get out of the AI hype and kind of realistically look at, like, what am I actually trying to solve? And go slowly at it. Learn, pace yourself through it, and do it financially responsibly.
That's one of the things I was hoping for the audience to like understand. That part is everyone hypes it, which is, to Corey's comment, how do you eat an elephant? But what you're hearing so many examples is they're just taking that nibble here and nibble there, and they're showing how point solutions can actually be used while people are trying to figure out what is holistically, what does it mean? What does that elephant look like in the first place? We don't know that yet. We're still trying to figure that out.
And I owe my friend $5 every time I use that phrase. So.
I didn't know, so sorry, man. Your friend's going to get rich.
I'll get 5 from you.
All right, I'll take care of it. JP, let's talk a little bit more about that as well, too, because I think to Corey's point, you brought up something which is, CMCD, V2, all this data is coming through, but to Corey's point, you're not using it yet. There's no productionization of it yet.
Well, there's a bunch of data that, like, QE was not invented by CMCD. Fortunately, it exists way before. I think it's just standardizing it and making it interoperable. So, yeah, QE data and CDN logs are there. So I think the challenge is not we figuring out what to use AI for. It's actually what's the strategy behind it as a company. I think it's a matter of rethinking the entire business. I think, like, if you look at stories, I remember there was one presentation at Streaming Tech Sweden of sports OTT that started like totally digital, and their operations were completely different from like the old like broadcasters that evolved into OTT, and their cost and all their operational efficiencies came from rethinking the entire process. I don't remember the name.
Media.
Yeah, Media. And but the way they did it, like it didn't only reduce like satellite costs. It changed, like they didn't need track drivers, or because they weren't using satellite tracks, or like they did so many things differently because they started in digital. And I think the problem when you go to these big corporations is that everyone's trying to do like their little AI thing in their department. So, like you said, QoE, but QoE depends on the player team, it depends on CDN team, it depends on the platform team, it depends on so many pieces, and then you have data from the encoders and data from the packagers, and these are all different departments or managers that have different KPIs and objectives, and maybe each of them is trying to figure out how do I use AI for these, and maybe there's an entirely different way to doing things if you started from scratch. So what I'm not seeing yet very clear is what's the AI strategy and what's the governance behind it. Like for us, it's been a lot of discussions on where can we use your data or your code in, like how can we use AI to accelerate your code development or not? Like there's a lot of discussions around governance and strategy.
I think that another thing that you're talking about, which I'm going to tie into the next pillar of AI conversation here, is you're still not trusting it for something. Everyone's still looking at the human in the loop inside there. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys are doing as you're doing implementations of where the human being is still most important and critical to implementing any kind of strategy. And I know, Magnus, you've started using some stuff. Talk to me more about how, like, what's next beyond Oscar, and how are you keeping the human in the loop to keep training it to be better?
I think Definitely, you need to understand what you ask Oscar to do. So there is no random thing. Oscar will not yet, at least, start implementing his own ideas. He's inventing some problems, though, sometimes on his own. But but I think that you still need to understand what you're asking for. And I honestly, I think AI will revolutionize or change the way we're working with software or media orchestration in total. Because suddenly, when I worked at the product company before, we hated customizations and customer adaptations. Now these are trivial to do because you can code is not a problem anymore. So you can do customized UIs, you can do customized workflows by asking AI to help you do those things. So, but you still need to understand what you're asking for. So human in the loop in the beginning, absolutely, and you still need to review what to get out of it. But in between doing the hands-on work of coding, so the abstraction of coding has raised completely.
And Sayyad, I know you'd mentioned the clip creation and whatnot. Where does the human in the loop play into that?
Yeah, I think this one's a little bit personal to me because as a big sports fan, I don't want AI anywhere near video assistant refereeing. So there is the aspect of AI being predictive imaging, right? And I think that's where for now, there will be some limitations and some applications where it can be used. So I give the example of video assistant refereeing where I feel like that still needs the human element and the human touch. But let's take it a step further. Back to my low-res proxy in parallel with the compressed stream, then I can feed that to a 3D engine and do something like augmented reality. So I may not use that to make my decision, but I have an augmented reality showing me the offside line, showing me the players and things like that. So I definitely do think there's still a human element to it. Where AI can be a little bit more autonomous is we have an application where we do slow motion replay as part of our live replay system. Now, we've utilized AI to actually allow us to utilize regular cameras and through predictive imaging, give you a slow motion replay of that. Now, that's not affecting any decision. That's just sent to the broadcaster. So I think different applications, different use cases.
Yeah. Doug, do you want to talk a little bit about human in the loops of how, because you're using AI, but small operations, like you've got to really control that.
Yeah, exactly. It's crucial in a small operation that you have to pay attention to what it's doing, because as Magnus referred to, it can hallucinate. It can kind of go off on its own. So when you're building out your data sets for a LoRa, for example, or you're building out your data sets for a fine tune of around a specific topic, understanding what the quality of the material going into it is going to be crucial because it's the old garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have a subject matter expert determining, whatever your best coding practices are, whatever, and then teaching the model that you're going to use to do those things, you're going to fight it, right? So you have to have that person establishing what the content standard is that it's going to be trained on, and then you have to have a person reviewing and making sure it's holding true to that. And then there comes in a whole other aspect of data governance and making sure you have chain of IP throughout that whole process, and whether or not what you're producing is violating someone else's IP.
Corey, do you want to talk about trust or lack of thereof?
Yeah. So going back to the C2PA conversation, it's if that really becomes like an industry standard and we're all holding each other accountable for things that are authentic traveling across the network, then it behooves me to deploy some kind of detection mechanism that will catch this stuff in flight as it's live, because there's obviously DNS poisoning. There's obviously different ways of hijacking video traffic and re-engineering that traffic on the fly because of the way that we have all these new tools, AI specifically, involved that we can now either timestamp differently or we can replace frames on the fly. We can embed watermarking that's subliminal in the actual video transport itself. So I think AI is going to play particular important role in terms of combating not only piracy but also fake transmissions out there in the world that again going back to the earlier panel, brand reputation, legal issues that are happening, geopolitical obstacles, so to speak, if that stuff gets out in the wild and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's like there's ways of doing it ethically and doing it for the right reasons, as opposed to combating the other side of the fence, where it's like the old white hat, black hat hackers that are using it for nefarious reasons. Yeah. There has to be a general handshake between both sides of that coin.
There's an entire pillar about using AI for ethics and authenticity. I think let's dive into that for a little bit right now then as well too. Because beyond the data, which we can talk about afterwards, like what are the ethical implications of using AI? If it's used for automation, do you see decisions that can be potentially wrong? Let's talk about.
Sure. I mean, you could use AI to build more efficient codecs. You can use AI to basically enhance the customer experience as they're consuming media, to basically use AI to optimize the streams and the bit rates going into that client playback, as opposed just to pick one of the HLS ladder levels, based on your bandwidth consumption. But again, optimizing those experiences. So you're optimizing your traffic, you're sending less bits down the wire, so you're saving costs on network. And we could continue to talk about how the world is completely expanding every single year. There's more and more 100 gig links going in, and 400, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like eventually there's got to be some limitation of why do we have to keep on building all these high-speed networks with this capacity if
to make AI-generated videos?
Well,
pass
not
it to all the
necessarily that,
friends.
but like let's optimize the traffic and the capacity we already have, so we're not constantly just throwing away gear every 3 years.
But not just gear, but energy, right? The
Gear,
energy,
energy, everything. Yeah, data center space. It's just like that's why the cloud television model was so interesting over COVID, is because it was like, oh, I'm just using somebody else's compute. I actually don't have to buy CapEx type of equipment and depreciate it over 5 years, which kind of flips out your finance department, right? When you're trying to make these deals. But it makes sense that the CapEx versus OpEx, modeling. That's why they say cloud is so expensive, but it's not. It's actually almost the same as CapEx, if not cheaper, because of the fact that you have to constantly retool your gear every so often, every couple of years anyways.
I want to ask if you guys want to talk about ethics, otherwise I've got a question for Sayyad as well too, about ethical use of AI.
Well, I don't think I'm the expert to talk about ethics, to be honest, but so yeah, I'd rather not. So.
Okay, let me ask Sayyad, because you mentioned something about, rendering frames in the middle, things like that. What responsibility does a vendor then have to potentially use something like CTPA or whatever to identify the fact that this is no longer the original source video, this has been altered in some way?
Yeah, I think that's very important, and it's on the onus of the vendor to be using trusted practices. And when you do utilize AI for any kind of workflows, I think that's one thing you have to be mindful of, that there is a security aspect of it, and you have to be using someone that follows standards and compliances.
But who's at fault though, right? So it comes down to, is it the content creator? Is it the network where the video is transported? Is it the interconnected gear within a facility somewhere? Is it somewhere the CDN side, if it's a stream-based delivery mechanism? Like who's legally responsible to make sure that information gets failed closed across the network?
Potentially, we might not know. Go ahead.
Isn't that one of the opportunities, though, to use AI to be that ethics watchdog, right?
Well, it is, but I think that we have to have the legal conversation first
absolutely.
as well.
You have
right?
to be able to define what is unethical, what is an unethical use, be able to put use cases against that, and then put tests against it. Because Sora 2's been making the rounds, and there's a gentleman out there doing some interesting tests where he took some footage of MLK and his speech on the square, and then essentially rewrote the whole context used voice cloning, and he says, he makes MLK say some pretty dangerous things, right? He's doing it as an example to say, in the age of fake news, AI can make that problem way worse. Absolutely. And so we have to be all having that conversation about how we make sure that doesn't happen.
And,
right?
and in the world,
AI can be part of that solution.
Yeah.
But in particular, I think C2PA, it's going to depend on the end users. And it's like HTTPS. Like none of us now trust a site that doesn't have the green lock in it, and you see the certificate, and it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't mean the site is okay. Like the information, it means that it's the bank you're trying to connect with.
And just like the prior panel, just talking about C2PA, it becomes important for people to sign what they say that this is absolutely from me, modified by me, or modified by a partner, and that's the end of it. If it does not have that signature, do not trust it.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of education at the end. Like, you don't trust sites that are not HTTPS. Well, you don't trust videos that are not signed.
Magnus, I want to ask you, because we've got about 10 minutes left or less. I want to give some time for questions. But going back to the comment about eating the elephant and looking at like what is the larger scale, where do you see
$5.
your...
Another $5.
I'll get you a beer later on.
Sorry.
Where do you see your use for you, your company, and or your customers of where you want to see AI next?
Next is probably already today or tomorrow, because the world is getting so quickly around AI. But I would say, like I mentioned before, I think it's a matter about orchestration as a code. It's not orchestration is not a product; it's code, and AI will help you with that. But you still need to understand what to do and how to do it, and what you're asking for. So the domain knowledge and understanding the workflows is crucial. But the hands-on work of applying the code to it is something you get help with. And we're already doing it, so it's not a future thing, it's actually today, but it's getting better tomorrow.
JP, where are you guys going with it?
Like, let's say every time we deep dive into this topic, it's kind of depressing, and it also brings anxiety, to be honest. And then I realized, like, it's fine. I'm gonna go get another bottle of wine. But so for us, I think it's such a big elephant. To your point, like, I think there's a challenge to our industry in general, to entertainment, which is that a big chunk of internet content nowadays is not being created by humans. And it's not being consumed by humans. And you can see that when you Google now, like you get an AI answer of it. So all those websites that had an advertisement in them are now not being accessed. So you're never seeing those ads because Google already scanned all those websites and gave you an AI-generated answer. So I think that's the kind of problems we're going to have. Like, we're not going to be transporting human-generated content. We're not going to be consuming, and it's not going to be only humans doing it. Like the numbers, I remember reading Will Law's blog post or post something about how much of the traffic from Akamai was being bots.
Yeah.
And it was a huge number. Like, I might be wrong, but it was like 30%. Like, it was huge amount of data was being consumed by bots or generated by. So I think that there are so many challenges to our industry that we need to be like thinking about ourselves and be collaborating on, because I think it's a bigger problem than any of us.
We'll keep on down the line. Corey, what's next for you?
Sure. I don't actually know what is next. Obviously, it's going to be another interesting year of watching the AI conversation and see how it evolves.
What tiny little nibble do you think you want to tackle next, though, instead of looking at the whole thing?
I think for myself, I would like to see us invest in the orchestration layer side. Again, the scale out, the route optimizations across the network, being able to quickly build media workflows on the fly. And I think I use the example like Norsk, which is kind of this building block component type of platform, which you could instantiate a workload very, very quickly within a matter of minutes, as opposed to taking days to build something if you were using other platforms or AWS or whatever it happened to be.
Very cool.
But it's stuff like that, like immediately having an operations center that says, hey, I need 150 more SRT lines stood up into these endpoints, and have the bots go out and control that scale, right? I think that that's critical path for obviously keeping our size of operations from our operations center perspective in check. But I don't want to replace our operators with the robot overlords, right? I want to make sure that we're keeping all the technology in check, so there's still a human at the wheel.
All right, Sayyad.
Yeah, I think we've seen our industry pivot so many times, talk SDI to 2110, on-prem to cloud. And I think we're just at the beginning of the AI phase. So I think right now we're at the building block stage. The engineer in me would love to see AI be used to just automate everything broadcast.
You guys are using it internally, even just to do your own little mini chat.
Yeah,
box for your
absolutely.
documentation.
Yeah. So like we I spoke to Bhavesh about this before. We actually use AI internally because we have such a large product catalog. How does our solutions architect know every single product? Well, we built an AI bot that actually allows you to just get all of the information on the Evertz product catalogs, right? So I think it will definitely change. My vision for AI, like I said, like some of the applications that I mentioned, those are just visions and ideas, but I think it's all customer driven and where the money is, right? And I see that changing very frequently.
Doug, where are you going with this?
I'm really focused on obviously the ethics piece, right? I think we're going to see a lot of trends where folks are going to have to bring their AI stack in-house specifically so they can protect it and they can establish a chain of IP from inception through licensing, right? So things like that, and then also being part of the solution for how do we do this fingerprinting where you can say, hey, this is AI generated and it's a requirement by law. I think those are the things that have to come together to make this go forward. But I'm bullish in general on AI. I think it's going to solve a lot of problems for us in the long run. But we're going to go through this rocky period where we're figuring stuff out. And it's a little bit wild, wild west.
Yep. And you're trying to figure out what the whole strategy should look like, as well as what tiny pieces you want to go after next. What kind of data needs to help you supply with this stuff, and where do you keep the human in the loop to iterate and to have it learn? Quick question for the audience. How many people actually are already working on AI workflows within your organization or for yourself? Very cool. Good. And then I'm going to, before I give it to final remarks for those folks, we've got 4 minutes left. Questions in the audience. Let's start with David and then.
So one of the things that I've heard is that if you're using, say you integrate a bot like Oscar, right? It's like, hey, I got a free junior engineer, right? And like you said, they can make mistakes, need to do their code reviews, as most people. Probably doesn't get as moody if it gets rejected, which is a good thing. But ultimately, like, what does this do for people who want to come into our industry, right? Like, why would you ever hire a junior engineer now in that? And does that mean that they need to have different skill set, need to be more a little product focused that they could drive that? Because great, they could be like, hey, hire me and you'll get my buddy AI guy with me and I can take care of him too. But then it's, it's the blind leading the blind, the junior leading the junior. What does that mean for our industry for people to come into it now?
Well, actually, we had that problem twice this year. College students wanted to do these the first job experience for 3-6 months. They started like business and stuff, and neither our marketing, sales, or finance departments needed them because they said whatever someone like a student could do in 3 months, I can now easily do with a Gemini or ChatGPT, because that's the kind of stuff you would give to a junior person. But also that was a way for them to actually get any experience. So to your point, I don't have the answer, but I do see that problem. We're 100 people and we already have that problem.
Magnus, would you ever hire a junior person when you have an army of Oscars?
Very good question. We're starting to talk about builders instead of developers, because the developers or builders will be more of a sort of leading the work, and so you lift the abstraction layer, but you still need the domain knowledge, and junior developers don't have the domain knowledge anyway. So
But how do they ever get it if they never?
they work with the rest of us in the company and learn the domain, learn what video workflows is and all these things, and then they can.
Unpaid internships are back in style.
Yeah, Oscar still needs some
Yeah.
treatment. So
Let's another question.
Just to add to this, at Evertz we had this internal poll, because we had lots of internal AI training, and there was an internal poll if people are, what's the level of anxiety that people have around AI. And unlike any new technology, it was like the younger you are, more anxious you are about AI. It was really, really very interesting, because young people, they just, very hard for them to see their place. For us who are already experienced, we're just going to be super users and we'll be so much more empowered. So it's yeah, I have 3 teams. It's tough.
Or you say what you want, I'll repeat the question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, like, I see that already. My little brother's 25 and he hasn't even had his first job yet. He's been out of college for 4 years and
25-year-old brother,
science
yeah.
degree. So
Yep.
all of his friends are in the same place. It's
All right.
pretty rough.
One more question over here. And then
We already
Craig.
have a broadcast industry problem with new engineering talent coming into the fold. I mean, just like trying to find an RF engineer these days on, satellite teleports, right? Like those guys are going to age out, right? And eventually, are the satellites just going to fall out of the sky? We're going to stop using it entirely? Like, we're not. That's the problem. We've been talking about. Okay, so it's like 3D TV. We're still on the hype train there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Dion. We notarize live AI and SSI events, with signed usage receipts. So operational logs can become payable truth. And, we can do this sideband in under 20 milliseconds and without touching the delivery stack. My question is, in live streaming where AI and SSI or SSI AI automates midstream decisions, how do you determine when a decision or an impression is trusted enough to settle payment on? And is it based on predictive metrics right now? Or, client logs or verified playback? Thank you.
I think it's a pretty interesting question, right? Because we've struggled with the dynamic ad insertion piece for quite some time, whether we should be doing it inline on the stream for a one-to-many kind of delivery, or we do it on the client, right? I think from an AI perspective, it would be pretty interesting to actually model out like personalized ad delivery on the fly. That can, if we talk about AI generated video, AI generating it on the client. In terms of the ad delivery piece, so you're actually not even shipping it to the stream. So every stream is personalized to that user.
That question itself could be an entire other panel, and David can host that one over there. Thank you guys so much for the conversations. Thank you, panel, for being part of the stuff. And hopefully everyone got to learn something.